Beat reporter and co-anchor LATIFA ZEE-YADD recently conducted a phone interview with former Framingham resident, Oscar-nominated screenwriter ANDREA BERLOFF to talk about her career and her work on Straight Outta Compton.
You've been spending a lot of time at your auntie house. How's the couch life?
Got my woman and my baby living there. It's hard, man. But you know, everybody can't do what you do.
Really, what I do getting played out, Dre. Where the money at?
Why you gotta be so ruthless, cuz?
I'll make a few changes.
Where you think you going?
I'm just trying to get home.
That's my son.
You need to get back in the house or I will ruin your life.
I gotta talk to my moms like that.
Recently nominated for the movie Straight Outta Compton as a screenwriter for the Academy Awards. And Framingham's really excited to have you with us in the studio. Andrea, welcome to our show.
Thank you so much. So happy to be talking to you guys.
Well, you know, I want to talk about how a young lady coming out of Framingham ends up on the streets of Compton talking, you know, about a very really rich story that hasn't really been told on big screen before.
Well, it was a long journey. It didn't happen overnight, of course, but you know, my days in Framingham definitely prepped me well. I had a great education there at Framingham South High School, and after Framingham I went to college, and then I spent a couple of years in New York City doing theater there, and eventually made my way to Los Angeles. And pretty soon after arriving in LA, I realized I really enjoyed writing. Any writer needs to just have a great, solid education, not just in movies, but in life. And particularly going to Framingham South, it was a very diverse high school.
You talk about the NWA story like it's a story of America. Can you talk about what that means?
Well, you know, growing up in the Boston area in the 80s and the early 90s, there was a lot of talk about, you know, school desegregation and busing and all of that. So civil rights was something that I was well aware of from a very young age. And my mother is retired now, but she was the director of the Massachusetts Office on Disabilities, which really is the organization that protects the civil rights of people with disabilities.
These are artists.
You know, I knew that the music in the movie was going to be fantastic. That sort of goes without saying. And so for me, it wasn't going to be a movie, a music movie. It was going to be, it had to be about something else. You know, I didn't want to just do what was obvious. I wanted to do bigger ideas. And so I realized really that the rise of hip hop very much is the story of the culture of America at the end of the 20th century. I mean, and what is it like to grow up under that level of police presence right in your face? I think that, you know, there are many of us who fortunately don't have to understand what that feels like, particularly people like Ice Cube and Dr. Dre, who are such huge icons. And we see that, you know what, they were just black kids like any other black kid at one point. And see the abuse that they suffered. I think it all sort of brought it home a lot more clearly for people, and they could relate to it a lot better. And I spent, I mean, God knows, countless hours talking to Ice Cube and Eazy-E's widow, Tamika Woods Wright, and Ren and DJ Yella, and everybody else I could possibly think of in their world. And that whole process took about 10 months. And by the way, I also spoke with civil rights activists and an incredible professor out of USC named Todd Boyd. He's a professor of hip-hop.
Were there times where you were threatened or felt threatened?
Well, I never felt threatened, of course. I mean, you know, they're businessmen and they're responsible adults, and I never felt threatened. And, you know, they were also, you know, there were a couple of people, particularly Suge Knight, I asked, could I interview him? And they all sort of, as a chorus, said no. It was all very thrilling. It was a long process. I worked on the movie for years, and, you know, I'm really just so happy that people got it.
Well, Andrea BERLOFF, we're really excited. You came from Framingham South, and you're making such a mark on Hollywood. And we look forward to more of your movies being both nominated and awarded at the Academy Awards.
Well, me too. Well, I miss Framingham lots. I hope that everybody there as well. And thank you so much for all of your thoughtful questions.
Thank you. It's been a joy.